Right now, the Bitcoin market feels like the Wild West. You have the bears yelling that Bitcoin is over. It's going into a bear market. We're going to be seeing all-time new lows dropping past 20,000, even going into 15,000. And then we have the bulls who think that Bitcoin is just on a small consolidation phase on the way to the moon, and six figures is guaranteed by the end of the year. Now, what is the true story? In today's video, I have some crazy stories, some that you've probably already heard about, like El Salvador, but some that nobody is covering at all, like Bulgaria and Ukraine's holdings of Bitcoin being astronomical. So stick around, because today we're going to go through all of these stories in a very quick video. And also, if you lovely people aren't following me on Twitter already, you should definitely go check out my Twitter. It's Sir Brian Turner. I'm starting to tweet there all the time, so in between these videos, you'll be getting all sorts of updates on Bitcoin and the overall investment markets. Without further ado, let's get into this video. All right, so we've been in a bit of a downtrend lately. A lot of people are calling for a bear market start because there is the Deathcross, where basically the 50-day moving average and the 200-day moving average are going to cross, which generally in the past has signaled a bear market is starting, and that we will be seeing an even bigger dump and an even longer prolonged bear phase, or even a bear market starting. A lot of people are really scared of this. But generally, when everybody is feeling, when they're crowding one trade, that trade generally doesn't happen. Bitcoin usually doesn't go with the crowd. Now, just today, we've seen Bitcoin rally by 15%. Some people are saying that this is a dead cat bounce. It's just a relief rally before a further downside movement. Really, nobody knows, but in my opinion, there is some very bullish news that, again, in my opinion, does indicate that Bitcoin will be going higher, at least in the short to medium term. And I do think that it will be breaking back past 45,000 and even possibly into the 50s. And from there, it's anyone's guess as to where it's going to go. Okay, so let's get into the news. The first big story is that Biden's main advisor, Tim Wu, we just found out that he's holding between $1 and $5 million in Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is his biggest holding. He also holds other things, one of the things being Filecoin, which is another cryptocurrency. But this is pretty big news. It is kind of weird that there's such a discrepancy. 1 million or 5 million seems like a lot of difference. But either way, one of the main members of the Biden cabinet is bullish on Bitcoin. A lot of people are freaking out about this. It's pretty big. Okay, another big piece of news that I don't think a lot of people are covering or even talking about or even maybe know about. There's a website called bitcointreasuries.org. Now, this website catalogs all of the companies and countries that hold Bitcoin in their assets. So on that site, you'll see all sorts of different places. You'll see mining companies, you'll see companies like Microstrategy, Tesla, all these different places. And it goes from, companies that are holding hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin to companies that are holding 36 Bitcoins. It really covers everything. But the part that I thought was really interesting is when you got down to the government section, which has really been the talk the last couple of days here because El Salvador adopting Bitcoin as a currency, all this kind of stuff. It's very interesting. Bulgaria holds 213,519 Bitcoin, and the Ukraine holds 46,351 Bitcoin. Now, I don't know why nobody is talking about this, but that's a huge sign of government adoption. Of course, we're talking about El Salvador, talking about a bunch of other Central and South American countries, either indicating that they're interested in Bitcoin or they have already, started the adoption phase. But that's huge. Bulgaria is a very big country, and that's a lot of money in Bitcoin, signaling that they really do believe in it in the long term, or they wouldn't be putting that much money on the line. Now, before we get into the South America, Central America news, which is absolutely insane, even Mexico, hold on, we're going to get into that. Microstrategy, Michael Saylor, Giga Chad, Michael Saylor. We know he is such a big Bitcoin bull. We know he keeps buying. He even bought at the top. He doesn't care. He keeps buying because in his own words, he said that Bitcoin is an asset that company will be holding for over 100 years. He has no plan on flipping it, trying to time the top. He's just accumulating as much as possible. MicroStrategy has almost reached 100,000 Bitcoin in their possession. And just this week, Michael Saylor just announced that MicroStrategy is offering another convertible bond where they're trying to basically take on debt, get money from investors, and use that money to buy Bitcoin. He's done this in the past quite a few times. And when he announced this, he said it was going to be $400 million. Immediately after that, there was so much attention and demand for this bond that he raised it to $500 million. And then only a few short days after that, we found out that the interest, the demand for this was actually $1.6 billion. That's how many people wanted to give Michael Saylor their money in exchange for, I believe it was a 7.6% interest paid back in 2028, I believe. And we don't know if Michael Saylor is going to just stick with the $500 million he announced, or if he's just going to take anybody's money who wants to give it to him, $1.6 billion worth, and then buy Bitcoin. But we definitely know that Michael Saylor is going to buy Bitcoin. Now, the question that's really important is, when does the buying start? Because a lot of people think that this recent rally that just happened today with 15% is because of Michael Saylor buying. But actually, we know that the bond doesn't actually expire, I believe, until the 14th. So he hasn't gotten that money until the 14th. So he couldn't have started buying Bitcoin yet. So the next question that I want to know is, when does he start taking that $500 million or possibly even $1.6 billion and starts to buy using the michaelsaylor.exe Bitcoin buying robot? When does that happen? Well, if we look at the past offerings that he's done, he offered a convertible bond in the past on February 19th, and he bought $1 billion worth of Bitcoin by February 24th. So from the close, so we're going to be closing this bond offering this time on the 14th, it's about 5 days. So he could start buying immediately on the 14th, and that could take roughly 5 days or so for all of that money to be used up to buy Bitcoin. Now, one thing I do want to mention is that this, if he does do the $1.6 billion, is bigger than the past ones. So maybe it won't be 5 days, maybe it'll be 10 or 15. 3 times longer would make sense. We don't really know. But roughly, starting on the 14th, in my opinion, I do see Bitcoin going up because Michael Saylor really doesn't try to time the market. I think you guys know this. He just buys. He just hits buy and automatic just starts going at it, right? So the price action that's happened in the last day possibly because people are trying to front run his buying because they know that Michael Saylor does it this way, and they can pretty much, in their opinion, be guaranteed that longing Bitcoin is a good idea at this point. Not financial advice here. I'm not doing any sort of options or derivative trading, but if I was, I would definitely be opening some longs right now because Michael Saylor's pretty dependable with this. But then the other speculation is that the reason the price has rallied so much in the last day is because El Salvador last night around midnight actually made Bitcoin a legal tender, a legal currency in the country. Now, this passed with a supermajority in their Senate. I believe it was 64 votes out of 82 votes signaled for yes. And so last night it went into law that Bitcoin is now a recognized currency to be used in El Salvador. Now, what does this actually mean? It basically means that any debt in the country can be paid with Bitcoin, and the debtor has to accept Bitcoin as payment. Period. They don't get a choice in the matter, which is pretty bullish. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can walk down to the store in El Salvador, the grocery store, and use Bitcoin. That doesn't mean that. But for example, that you owe a debt to the bank for a house or a property or something like that. The bank has to accept Bitcoin as a payment. Now, the law was passed last night, but it won't be going into play for 90 days. So this gives plenty of time for people to front run it. One of the things that I think is really interesting about this is that the El Salvadorian president announced that there will be a fund set up that owns $150 million worth of Bitcoin to help offset the volatility for people who are using Bitcoin to pay off their debts and stuff. But basically what we're finding out is that El Salvador is going to buy $150 million of Bitcoin. Now, that's kind of small numbers, especially when you have Michael Saylor buying $1.6 billion of Bitcoin. But it's just another country that's putting it on their reserve sheets. And also, it's a legal currency, which brings up this next point, which is really interesting. The president was actually on Twitter in a live chat room with a bunch of other people, and a lot of stuff happened. Mark Cuban was there. A ton of people were talking, and a lot of really interesting stuff happened. But one of the things that the president mentioned is that he'll be meeting with the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, on Thursday. Now, We don't really know what this is going to end up, turning out to be. But again, like we've speculated in the past video, this could be the first time that the IMF announces that Bitcoin is recognized as a foreign currency because it's being used in El Salvador. And as soon as that happens, a lot of things change in America and in a bunch of different countries, because Bitcoin goes from being a property or an asset or security to being a currency, which means that taxes could change a lot on it. A lot of stuff is going to change. So that's all really exciting, but we also have a lot of other countries in Central and South America signaling that they're interested as well. I mean, a lot, like seriously a lot, like Paraguay, a bunch of Panama, a bunch of different places. But this is very interesting. The president of Colombia is talking to Jack Mallers, the CEO of Strike. This is the same guy who facilitated this bill with the El Salvadorian president, and he's talking to the same guy to do basically the same thing in Colombia. One domino falls, other follow. The second person in the Mexican legislative branch also proposed legal framework for crypto in Mexico's House. So this is another person in Mexico. There's been two now. There's probably going to be more who are saying that we want to do something similar and adopt Bitcoin into Mexico. And that would be probably the biggest news out of all of these countries, because Mexico's remittance industry is massive, and people who live in America and send money back to their family in Mexico lose a lot of money on that remittance because they have to pay a giant fee through like Western Union or TransferWise, and this would basically solve that and make it so that it's basically free to send money back, and that would be a huge use case. Also, the Vice Minister of Economics Inclusion in Ecuador changed his profile photo to laser eyes, which is a meme that basically means you change your profile photo to laser eyes until Bitcoin gets to 100K. It's called laser eyes to 100K. And this is just basically kind of signaling that you are supportive of Bitcoin. Now, again, this is just more and more and more people in governments in these countries signaling that they're interested in Bitcoin. And of course, those people are bringing conversations into their governments, into their parliaments, to talk about how they can move forward and follow in the footsteps of El Salvador and possibly these other countries like Colombia. And game theory, once a couple of them do it, the rest of them are going to say, let's not get stuck behind everybody. Let's get on this trade before the bus leaves the station, before the train leaves and we can't hop on anymore. And so you kind of have this FOMOing of countries. I think that's a very big deal. Now, there's a ton of different stories that I could also cover. Like seriously, there's about 10 other stories, but I really had to decide what I thought was the most important. And I felt like these were very important. Now, we are at this weird time where you have almost an equal amount, maybe more, of people being very bearish, calling for Bitcoin to hit, this new bear market and hit 20K, possibly. A lot of people are saying 17 or 15K. I'm not saying that that's not possible. Honestly, I'm not afraid of it at all. If that happened, all I would do is sell the house, sell the family, sell the kids, sell the dog, get as much US dollars as possible and buy Bitcoin with it. That would be a huge buying opportunity for me. But I do not personally believe that that's going to happen. I do think that what's going to happen is we are going to be going possibly to new all-time highs soon, but I do think that over the course of the next few months, possibly in, I would say, August, September, October, I think we will be seeing new all-time highs. Some news that you maybe have already heard, but I also wanted to cover some stories that I don't think anybody is talking about, again, like the Bulgaria and Ukraine news. I think this is stuff that we really should be covering that nobody is. So if you aren't subscribed to my channel, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because I try to uncover this news, this information that nobody else is doing the effort to dig up and to do the research into, to let you guys know what's happening in the cryptoverse. So if you aren't subscribed, again, subscribe, hit the notification bell, give this video a thumbs up, and let me know what you think right now. What are you doing? Are you buying? Are you selling? Are you hodling? Are you scared? Are you happy? What's cracking? Let me know in the comments below. Of course, if you haven't checked out the links in the description below, check them out. You can get a ton of different bonuses. You can sign up on Coinbase to actually purchase Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. You can use BlockFi to actually hold those cryptocurrencies while also earning interest on it. If you're planning on holding it for multiple years anyways, it's probably a great thing to do. Check out the other links as well. And I will see you beautiful people in the very next video.